You are listening to Travel to Tomorrow, a podcast on the future of travel and tourism.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is your host, Mario Hardy, CEO of the Pacific Asia Travel Association for Travel to Tomorrow. And today I'm actually joined with John Tanzella, President and CEO of IGLTA. Welcome, John, to the show. Great to have you with us today.
It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you, Mario, and with your audience. Thank you so much for including IGLTA into your mix.
You're welcome. John,
we're used to seeing each other in person, though.
Yeah, we have, and it's been several months. Normally we meet at several trade shows around the year, and sadly at the moment, well, we meet virtually, either on cameras or on audio on this occasion for today. But at least we've still got these connections, which is good. I think it's really important in this time of crisis that our industry stay connected, that we connect with folks on a regular basis in whichever forms we can, and support each other. We as you and I have talked earlier, we need a lot of morale support at the moment to go on with our days and making sure that this industry actually move forward, and which is one of the things we'll talk about today. But before we do that, John, can you just explain to our audience a little bit about what IGLTA stand for, what it is, and what is your mission, as well as the activities that you are involved with?
Yes, absolutely. So IGLTA, which stands for the International LGBTQ+ Travel Association, was established in 1983. So we've been around for a few decades. And our main purpose is really promoting welcoming travel experiences for our community all over the world. It began where I am right now in South Florida, and it was just 25 travel agents and guest house owners from South Florida and Toronto, actually. And it has blossomed over the decades to now we do business in about 80 countries. And it still has travel advisors and guest house owners, but it's expanded much beyond that to include airlines and cruise lines and tourism boards, all types of accommodations, events, particularly LGBT events, universities doing research on tourism that are interested in our segment. You name it. If it's someone in the tourism industry interested in our segment or learning more about our segment, that is basically what our audience is for what we're doing.
And how long have you been heading IGLTA?
I came 14 years ago, actually. I was working in Washington, D.C. at the time for the tourism office of Washington, D.C. And it was kind of funny because my segment was corporate meetings, bringing corporate board meetings or Microsoft, whatever, to Washington. But being the gay in the office, I also went after gay conferences and events, sporting events, whatever. And we were bidding on IGLTA's convention, and successfully. And then they reached out to me asking if I would consider coming to take the helm of the organization and move down to Florida. And the rest is history.
Quite often when I meet people who are not specifically from the travel or tourism sector, they believe that people like you and I join organizations like our respective ones as just another job. But for most of us, it's not only a job. We join because we believe in a certain mission. We believe in certain things that we want to improve, either in a sector or in a community that we work with. So what does it mean for you to lead this organization? And what actually attracted you to join an organization like this one?
Well, those are two really good questions. What attracted me was I was at their convention in Vancouver, and it was very small and very monogamous, if you will. It was very much an older, gay, white male crowd. And I just thought, for an international organization, this has so much potential to grow. And they didn't really have corporate partners or partners like PATA or the UNWTO, working with them. So I had mentioned it to a few board members that there, these kind of opportunities are out there. And for me, it's been, a labor of love. I have an amazing team, amazing organizations that we work with. Our membership are super engaged. And like you said, it's a real passion. My background had also been in tourism. I was with Delta Airlines for 15 years. My parents were both in the airline industry. And it's just, I've always enjoyed travel. I love learning different cultures and meeting people from all over. So it's what connects us as humans. And I've just really loved it. It's been interesting because even though we are specifically LGBT, a lot of our members overlap with PATA or with any organization to where, it could be, Thailand tourism, but we're a segment that they're also interested in reaching. So we work with a lot of great organizations out there.
When I've attended your conference in South Africa a few years ago, and,
yes.
and following that, I believe the year after, or maybe 2 years after, I attended also a workshop here in Bangkok with one of your members.
Yes.
And what I found really interesting and amusing to a certain degree, because everything was completely new for me to attending both of these workshops and event, was all the terminology. And I got so confused by it. The 70 plus type of definitions, and I got really confused. So you quote quite often in your speeches, but also in your documentation about LGBTQ plus. Can you explain to us the meaning of each one of those?
Yeah, you bring up a funny notion there, because in our industry alone we have so many acronyms, but then within our community, so that stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, and the plus means all others. Queer is the Q for queer is really a newer phenomenon in the last several years, particularly from the younger generation, that it's sort of all encompassing, versus when I was young, the word gay meant all of the above. But now it's much more defined within. And then the plus really is just for everything else that's fluid and different, including allies, straight allies for the community. So that's how that has come about. But you do see different variations of that from region to region around the world. But LGBTQ plus tends to be quite often used with international organizations, or LGBTI, which I would mean intersex. But from a travel perspective, that's not necessarily a market, and it's just it's more of a different way of looking at gender identity than we do. But that's probably the other most commonly used one.
Good. So recently, or just actually last week, IGLT and PATA jointly released a report called Connecting with the Resilient LGBTQ plus Travel Market. So I'd like to actually spend the next few minutes for us to talk about this report more specifically, because there are some great insights into the report, which I'd like you to expand and just go over some areas that I found quite interesting. So the first thing I actually noticed in the report at the very beginning, it talks about the evolution of how countries now recognizing same-gender relationship and marriage also, and etc. And it actually refers to, look, in 2016, there's been a significant legal advance around the world in terms of recognition. So 2018, India Supreme Court struck down the colonial era law criminalizing same-gender relationship. Chinese Taipei became the first destination in Asia to legalize same-gender marriage in 2009. In 2020, Costa Rica became the 29th country in the world and the first in Central America. Since you've been involved with the organization, which now a number of years, you must have seen a lot of changes, and hopefully in a positive manner around the world, and on having your community recognized and being able to publicly recognize the community.
most definitely. And, there are setbacks occasionally. I mean, India, the example with India, that sort of went back and forth. But in the end, it moved forward. So it is exciting, and it's really changed. I mentioned before about like corporate partners. When I started with IGLTA, we didn't have any corporations interested in our segment, and now it's quite normal to see destinations, hotels, airlines, cruise lines, reaching out to this community and engaging with their employee groups, to do the right thing and have the right accepting laws or policies, I should say, internally for their LGBTQ employees versus non-LGBT couples, for example. But yeah, Costa Rica was probably the most recent one, and the first in Central America. And we're not technically a human rights organization. We are purely business, but all of this really touches tourism because it becomes a boom of people wanting to go to the destination when laws are passed in favor of acceptance. They want to go and they want to support the destination. They want to go and explore it. So we always see, upticks in searches on our website, for example, or our members doing tours to those countries, and things like that. It's exciting. And yeah, we've seen so much evolution in all parts of the world. It's certainly not unique to any particular country or region. And there's still challenges. There's something like 70 or 75 countries where it's homosexuality is considered illegal. So that's a lot of countries that have laws on the books that are detrimental to our community. So there's still a lot of work to be done, and we do lend our hand to organizations that do the fight for the cause. But again, we focus more on the business side, but it's all really interesting data and evolution as we've been seeing, as you mentioned.
Yeah, when PATA signed our first agreement between IGLT and PATA, when we started to work together, I have to be honest with you. A lot of people did ask me questions. Why this agreement?
I know. I remember.
How does IGLTA actually contribute to travel and tourism? And my message to them was actually something we talk about in the report, that it represents $3.6 trillion. So
yeah, it's a big segment. Yeah.
I said, don't you want a piece of that business? And it led to some interesting conversation with people who say, oh, I didn't know. And so people start to ask questions, they were intrigued by it. So, well, how does it work? Or there's agencies specializing in this sector specifically, and what do they look for, and et cetera. So we had some interesting conversation, and I know that the destinations of Guam reached out to you, and you started to work together, I was really pleased. I said, yay, I can say we've achieved something, in this partnership, and others also start to ask questions in Thailand and other places too. So, I think the destinations are certainly more open. Maybe because of the relationship we have with your organization, I've been more attentive to the destinations who have an interest in this area, or even private businesses who are saying, well, what do I need to do to adapt to this community? And I remember something you shared at a conference before, that simple things. When you check in an hotel and you've got two gentlemen checking in, you may want to actually change the slippers to make sure you got pairs that fit. So
right. But some basic,
just basic things that people can do to adapt to the community. But more importantly, I think it's a question of respect. And when you check in at a reception, not necessarily have the odd questions. So, which I've seen when I checked in at the reception and saw either gay couples or lesbian couples checking in and having the stares or the difficult questions from check-in. So certainly in Asia, I think it's probably a little bit more prominent than other places. We've seen it from time to time. But in the report also, you talk about the fact that the LGBTQ plus travelers are more resilient. Okay, and you talked about some of the previous crises that the world had and how actually your community actually carried on traveling. Can you expand on this a little bit more as to why you think it's that way?
Yeah, and that's part of why we did this research project, Mario, is because anecdotally it's always been known, like, the LGBTQ travelers are resilient. We do travel, we're out of the gates quicker than non-LGBTQ travelers. Anecdotally in New York after 9/11, if you ask anybody in the industry in New York City that was there then, they will all tell you that it was the gay community that came back to first see Broadway shows and go out to eat and stay in the hotels. But there's no hard data on that. So that's why we actually did this research project during COVID, was to see, what is the resilience of the market for post-COVID. And it definitely honed in on a lot of points versus non-LGBT travelers for resilience and wanting to get back there. So it's interesting. If you look into the reasons why, a lot of it is that a lot of people in our community come from maybe conservative backgrounds, families, small destinations, and travel has always been a way for us to escape. So, you get to go out and you be yourself in another city where, there might be a community there that you didn't have maybe in your own hometown, or, your parents were not, were not good, if you will, with you coming out. So travel's just always been such a basis to our community. And the survey was really interesting to see that. But that is what we've seen over time, is the resiliency of the community and sticking with, the companies that market to them, organizations that market to them in an authentic way and long term. It's a very loyal community. And the research project, which is of course free to download, does reveal a lot of that type of information.
Yeah, the survey was quite interesting. You've interviewed over 15,000 LGBTQ plus individuals, and with the majority respondent being from US, Brazil, Canada, France, and Mexico. So it's a really, really big study. But some interesting statistics for our listeners today is that 2/3, 66 of global respondents said they would actually feel comfortable in traveling again for leisure before the end of 2020. With September and October being the most popular choice. I was really shocked by this positively, because I did not expect that this would be the way. Certainly the sentiment I get from people I talk to at the moment, they feel comfortable in traveling domestically, but very much people were actually hesitant to actually think of crossing borders or traveling internationally. One, because many borders are still closed. But even if they were opened, when I asked people around me, they said, "Oh, I'm not sure I'm ready yet." And so a lot of people are just saying, "Oh, wait and see." The other was that nearly half, 46%, said they would not actually change the type of destination they choose to visit after coronavirus situations is resolved, which is also interesting.
That definitely shows the loyalty.
Yeah, it shows loyalty, but I find this interesting because in other surveys that we conducted, people have said that they will look. Maybe the countries won't change, but the activities they actually going to do are likely to be different. So many of the respondents of other surveys I've seen or we conducted, I said they're less likely to go into crowded cities. They will much prefer go into nature-based destinations. Or areas where there's less crowded, smaller boutique hotels and larger resort where they're actually surrounded by thousands of people, so that's an interesting figure is to see that your community is actually as you said, they're loyal. They want to go back to the places they enjoy, and I guess where they know they will be welcome and respected respect their privacy. So.
And to your point, I mean, 27% said they were very likely to take a long haul flight, which is over 6 hours, before the end of 2020. Because all of our questions were geared towards before December 31st of this year. So it's a very short-term kind of survey. And the survey was done in early May, late April. So certainly things could change between then and now. I don't think they would change drastically, but if anything else, I think the longer we're quarantined, or trying to socially, distance ourselves, the more people want to travel because they're getting tired of staying home.
Yeah. Well, one of the other statistics I noticed here was the French LGBTQ plus travelers show a highest affinity, 66%, for domestic travel in the next 6 months. Interesting also because in Europe, borders are open, although under certain conditions, depending where you go. But yet they actually decide to mostly spend their holidays in France, locally. And certainly from my family and the friends I know in France, that's certainly what they're doing. They're not traveling overseas. They're just traveling to different parts of the country. And such a beautiful country. There's lots of beautiful areas to discover all the time. So, but again, they choose to stay domestically. Here in Thailand, we travel domestically because we don't have a choice. Borders are closed. But again, we've got plenty to offer also from the north to the south. Very different climate and different things to see and do and activities, and the rest of the country too. So we're taking advantage of this by going and discovering as much as we possibly can from Thailand over the next couple of months, and see the places we've missed before.
Which is wonderful. I mean, you like myself travel so much internationally every month. You don't really get to see the things in your own backyard, So it's a great time to explore your own country.
In the report, we also talked about a few other topics that I think are important for those who are not familiar with LGBTQ plus or AGLTA in general, or the community, to understand a little bit better about how you market to this community, and what are the things to do and watch for, and learning about the different acronyms and et cetera. And you talk about education comes first, and certainly at the workshop I attended here in Thailand, which was eye-opening for me. Actually, showed us a lot of interesting aspects of how businesses or destination can better educate the businesses within the destinations, and how they can be educated also in how to market themselves to this community. Can you give the audience maybe some tips on things they could do if you're, let's say, an hotel property or someone in the hospitality sector who hasn't been focusing or targeting this community before, things they could do to start opening their doors or be, to attract this market?
Yeah, and that's something we really help our members do, actually, because that's a natural progression. We always try to recommend, getting a handle on and understanding your employee groups, because you probably have LGBT employees in a hotel, and hearing their feedback first and what their thoughts are, and making sure that your house is in order. And what I mean by that is that your policies are inclusive for those employees, because even though, if you do it kind of the reverse, where you go out and start marketing your property to LGBT people, but then they find wind that of negative policies towards our community within your company, that's not going to go over very well, and you'll be called out for it. So it's good to make sure you do your homework first, engage your employees, and engage the local LGBT community, depending on the size of the city or town. There might be an LGBT business group, there could be a pride group, and when you get to the point of marketing, make sure you're being inclusive and authentic, using real people from the community, not having just males, also include females and others in the community, I think is really important as well. And, depending on where you are, you may not have an LGBT community or nightlife area like a lot of big cities do, but that's okay because not everyone in our community travels for nightlife by any means. You travel for various reasons, and then within our community, there are different areas of interest, just like in the non-LGBT community. So not having a gay neighborhood is not so relevant to market to our community. If you have any types of festivals or particularly wine festivals or arts festivals, that's very attractive to our community. Or history, beach, culinary. It doesn't have to be, nightlife and discos by any means. I mean, yes, the Bangkoks of the world have that and Tokyos, but it's not the first on the list of what people travel for. Just like if you're going to Rome, we're not going there for the nightlife. We're going there because, like everybody, you want to see the history. So, keep all of that in mind. What was that?
No, I think that this is an important point, because I think a lot of people associate the community with parties and nightlife. And the reality, as you said, there's no difference. Your community enjoy the same type of holidays that the rest of the people do, and you enjoy culture in the same way as others do. That there's nothing really special or unique or different. It's just that we all enjoy the same type of holidays at the end of the day. But I think the most important thing that I retained from what you mentioned before, and also as a result of the survey we saw, is that your community is extremely loyal. So if they go to a specific destination or a specific resort where they had a fantastic service, their privacy was respected in all of this, they're more likely to go back again and recommend other people to go.
Exactly. Yep. That I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's really about respect and being welcomed. If there's disrespect or being ostracized, it's going to make your vacation horrible. And so you're definitely going to go on social media and tell everyone else in the community to avoid that place or that hotel. So it's so basic, but it has to be ingrained into the employees that you treat all guests with respect.
The other aspect of the report, actually something that I've learned also to the workshops I attended, but again also flagged in here, is multi-generational travel and family travel also in your community, which is something that most people would probably won't associate with. Again, that people do travel in families too. They bring their parents along. They bring their brothers and sisters or their niece and nephews or children with them. On these trips.
It's becoming much more common in the LGBT community for same-sex couples to have children, and once you have children, the grandparents want to be involved too. So there's like multi-generations going on travel, just like you would in non-LGBT families. So it is a growing segment within our community for sure. And adventure travel is always big. Cruises, ecotourism, those are also always very, very big. But the family travel and the multi-generational travel are definitely a big trend of the last few years.
As we're getting near the end of our series today, I actually like you to talk a little bit for a few minutes about a segment which is really booming in your community and in travel, is event-based, or essentially weddings. You and I just happen to have some good friends who just got married recently, very, very recently.
Yeah.
And sadly, because of the current crisis, I've not been able to celebrate properly. But otherwise, it is a growing segment for your community. Can you just talk to us a little bit more about this? And because as I said, I do notice, and I see not only online but at various hotels before, where gay and lesbian weddings are actually getting really, really popular.
They really are. Same-sex couple marriages, honeymoons are really big as well. So if you're in a destination or you're with a property that focuses on that, definitely think about our segment, because there's a large opportunity there. If you have a small pride event, again, it doesn't have to be a major one, but that's something that the destination can market as a great event to bring in tourists. If you have maybe a restaurant that is owned by someone in our community, that's somewhere you'd want to bring some LGBT press to, and kind of market that as something within your community that you want to promote to the larger LGBT community. So, same-sex weddings, honeymoons, pride events, those are really big, and they're growing. More and more cities in Asia, in particular, are having pride events, and they're growing. So that's a great opportunity to bring in tourists from our community to come and experience the destination, the hotel tours. That reaches a very large base in a destination.
So if I'm a destination, John, and I'm really keen to promote this segment for weddings and events, where should I market? How do I market to your community? Are there special online groups that I should be marketing to, or any tips or techniques you can actually teach to maybe people who are working for destinations that are interested?
Yeah, absolutely. We work with hundreds of tourism boards around the globe and help them to elevate their messaging. So that's part of what membership includes, is for us to help them through our outlets. And whether it's a promotion or a contest or just something as simple as sharing their social media, press releases, things like that to our audience, because we have both a B2B and a B2C audience. And we really try our best to help promote these type of activities within tourism boards. And obviously coming to our convention is important, because you're going to network with other leaders in LGBT tourism from all over the world, and discuss best practices and trends. How can we help market their destination? But throughout the year, we do all sorts of activations. We also, we have a member connect call on Thursdays, where we bring members from all over the globe together to talk business. Sometimes we have speakers, sometimes it's networking. But a lot of our members, also help destinations with marketing, particularly if they're focused on same-sex weddings or any type of event to their destination. That we work with almost 400 travel writers and influencers in our space to help with those type of activations as well. So there's a lot of opportunity for a destination to market itself within our community. And again, it doesn't have to be very specific LGBT events. It can be the same-sex weddings or honeymoons. It can be, a film festival or a culinary festival that, they can market to our community and grow tourism to the destination, which, post-COVID, I think we're all going to need some help with getting travelers to visit our destinations for sure.
No, absolutely. I think that the next, the last few months have been very challenging, but sadly, the month ahead of us are as challenging as the one we just passed. And we hope,
that's true, unfortunately.
We hope there are some solutions are found soon, and we can all start traveling and most importantly, get the businesses in travel and tourism and back up again. And for those who are, trending to the ends of their financial means to carry on, hopefully they can get some new business soon and try to salvage a lot of the businesses who are really suffering at the moment in travel and tourism.
Yeah.
So it's a challenging time
for all.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yes.
And we've conducted some surveys with SMEs across the region here, and sadly, many of them have closed and closed permanently, and others are nearing to that situation at the moment if things don't actually turn soon. So, but no, that's probably a topic for another conversation in the future, because we could probably talk about it for quite some time, and I think we're hearing enough about COVID at the moment through various other means, and I'm sure as I do, you probably spend most of your time on webinars and Zoom calls talking about recovery and solutions at the moment. So, John, it's been a great pleasure to have you with us today. Before we end,
thank you so much.
I have two things to ask from you. Is one, and any final remarks or comments you want to leave with the audience?
Oh, I just would like to say thank you so much. I have the utmost respect for the president of PADA and for the PADA organization. So thank you, Mario. We've really enjoyed working with your team and your members and doing joint events in London and Berlin and everywhere else. So it's been a great relationship, and we really appreciate the support of our community there at PADA.
You're welcome, John. And one last question for you before we let you go is, when this is all over, where will you travel to?
I think the first, for leisure, do something fun.
Yeah. Is
that your question?
Yes.
Yeah. I think my first trip is going to be purposely New York City. I love going to Broadway shows, and I'm in Fort Lauderdale, which is kind of a quiet town. So I'm looking forward to getting out into a big city and go out to eat and walk around the city with the skyscrapers and see a show and just enjoy what I've done for so long, but except for the last 8 months.
Well, John, again, thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure to have you with us today. And for our audience,
thank you.
We will be back in early to mid-September with the last episode of this series, which I have the pleasure of welcoming the Executive Director of Greenpeace. So I look forward to that. And in the meantime, everyone stay safe, and we'll be with you again in a few weeks' time. So thank you very much.